Though this isn't very typical of teens. I loved going to my grandma's house. My grandma lives on a farm in Iowa. I don't live there, so I eagerly waited for the few times a year when we went out there. It was fun. So much space to run around on, plenty of animals to play with, and she even had a pool. And she gave me lots of sweets too. Anyways, it was just over a year ago. My parents and my aunts and uncle were all out there for a Memorial Day. Memorial Day was in April, so it was a bit nippy. My mom told me that I could bring my favorite red hoodie, and she hated that thing, so that's why I was excited. A few days into the trip, I wasn't doing anything, so I hopped onto my computer, turned some music on, and shut the door to my room I was staying in. My music was on half volume, so it was pretty loud. Anyways, I was just sitting there, typing away as I usually do, when I heard my grandma's dog barking. Now, her dog barks, just not that loud. It scared the crap out of me, so I ripped out my earbuds and listened. I don't even know what I was waiting for, but eventually I got up and walked downstairs, flinching at every creak. I told myself over and over again, you're out of the country, no one would break into your house in the country. I walked cautiously into the living room, where my grandma and aunt were sitting. My grandma, though, had gotten up to let the dog out. What happened? I asked. Don't know. The dog started spazzing, thinking that she saw something outside. And it wasn't a normal bark. Something fierce, my aunt said. I stared out into the windows and I saw my grandma and her dog outside. There was a drop off on the driveway where they were standing on, so the dog just paced around the side, as if it was trying to figure out the fastest way down, or showing that she protected the place. As I looked, I swear I could see a pair of golden eyes looking from the few trees that spaced in the house from the farm. I brushed it off, telling myself that it was probably many of the cats that my grandma had wandering around the farm. When my grandma came back inside and asked, "What was out there?" "I don't know. The dog's calmed down now and is eating some food," she said. I looked at her for a second and shrugged. Then I went back upstairs. Nothing unusual has happened for the rest of the night, until I went to bed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there, listening to the music, as those golden eyes floated through my mind. They had to have been at least a cat, right? As if the night wore on, I finally began to drift off to sleep. Just as I did, my eyes shot open and I saw the door opening very slowly. I froze, watching in horror as the door slowly opened completely on its own. The fact that it was opening wasn't that scared me, it was the fact I didn't hear it at all. I had my music on a lower volume because the house was quieter, and that the door was probably the loudest door ever in existence. Suddenly, as I was getting up, I walked over and slipped on my favorite red hoodie. All the while, I stared out at the window, seeing those golden eyes. I turned and walked downstairs, not making a sound. Odd as if following something. I went to go outside the sliding door that led towards the pool, walking along the pathway. I kept going. When the pavement turned to dirt, and the rocks poked at my bare feet in painful ways, I still kept going. Finally, I had walked around the barn to the side that was hidden from the sight at the house. What was waiting there fully and truly terrified me. It stood about 10 feet tall, and it had its back turned to me, but I knew exactly what to expect from that moment. It turned around, glowing golden eyes. I felt no fear, only the warmth of my safety, which I'm all terrified me because of that giant hulking monster inched its way closer to me. As it came closer, I could make out more features. It looked like a cross between a wolf and a human, except the limbs weren't all that graceful shape as they should have been. They were mangled and scarred, patches of its fur missing, revealing its wounds, some even fresh and bleeding. Finally, it stood right in front of me. Its eyes seemed to have borne my soul. Then, it seemed to smile. Well, smile is about as good as a wolf can be. Hello, darling, its voice gravely and deep, as he moved gently to pick me up. I promise you, this won't hurt one bit. Suddenly, he chomped down and tore off my leg. It hurt at first, but the pain disappeared after a few seconds. He lay on me down onto the gravel, smiling. Blood Red Riding Hood. That's what I should call you now. He bounded away. I lay there for a few minutes, and the pain rushed to my leg. I cried out and shifted my head, just in time to see the headlights of the car just a few feet in front of me, and about run towards me. I awoke from the start from that horrid dream. My music was still playing next to me. I looked up at the window to see that it was morning. Pulling down my covers, my leg was still there, completely undamaged. I shook my head at the thought of that nightmare, but froze when I looked down at the sketchbook I had left on the floor, written in big letters, written in blood with the single word, delicious. And that, my little pretties, was Blood Red Riding Hood, a fairy tale a fairy tale creepypasta. My final thoughts on this story? Okay, I'm gonna definitely say that this story honestly was pretty good, to be completely honest. So, yeah, this one actually looks like a pretty good story for what this one really is. Now, I'm gonna sit here and say this right now that this pasta I think was written in 2014 or 2015 or something around that time. I've heard of this story a few times actually from a few people such as Y&Y Storytime ASMR, Slaughterhouse Stories also did this, and Derailed the Dragon Readings also narrated this story. So I decided to go out of my way and, read this story because, why not? It looks like a pretty good story. I mean, there's a few people that have actually narrated this story. There's like a couple other people that narrated this as well. So I thought, why not go ahead and narrate this one? This one looks like a pretty good story. I'm not denying that one bit. It's a beautiful, well made story. I mean, this is basically Little Red Riding Hood, but this is more of, not taken back in the older times. Because if you remember the fairy tale Little Red Riding Hood, that story took place, back like years ago, maybe in the 18th century or 19th century, something around that time. So I think that's what, where the Little Red Riding Hood story came from or something. I think, but this, in this matter, is basically the same story, but it takes place like the present time, which is where we are now. So, yeah. Well, without the global pandemic going on, that is. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, the grammar was pretty good in this story. I'm not gonna lie about that, as well as the good sentence structuring, the storyline. I mean, it's basically like the Little Red Riding Hood, but it takes place more in the modern times, like where we are now and stuff. I mean, it's a pretty good story for what this one really is. Like, I'm not denying that one bit. Like, when I first saw this story and listened to this story, I actually think it was a pretty good story. So, that's why I decided to go on my way and narrate this. Now, I definitely would have to say that the story itself was pretty good for what it is. It does have a good concept. I mean, it was pretty good actually. Like, I mean, yes, there are some good creepypastas that, were just as good as this one. This one honestly did pretty good as well. So, yeah, there's definitely that. I really do think that the story actually did pretty good for what it is. There's definitely a lot of time and effort into the story. Now, to the person to the author who wrote this story, I want to say great job with this story. This was excellent, really well made, and I will have to say is a really good thing you put your time and effort into this story. So, I'm not sure who the original author of this story is because I can't seem to find it. if I ever find out who the original author is, like if the author manages to find this video and has a YouTube account or something and comments about regarding this story, letting them know that he or she wrote this story, I'll be sure to give them a proper credit. I'll be sure to credit them in the description if they were to see this video and let me know about if they wrote this story. So, anyways, with that being said, what did I actually think? Before I get to that, I want to say, it's a good story. I really like it because it's basically, a fairy tale creepypasta. And honestly, this story was pretty good. I'm not going to deny this one bit. It's a good story. And I recommend you guys check it out from the regular Creepypasta Wiki, because that's exactly where I got this story from. Now, since I can't find out who the original author of this story is, I'm going to sit there and, I just gonna leave this as anonymous for now until I find out who the original author of this story is. So, anyways, with that being said, this is simply my own personal opinion, and if you happen to disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions regards to these creepypastas, and this is simply my own personal thoughts. My final rating of this story would have to be a 10 out of 10. It was a really good, well-made story, definitely worth to read, and I recommend you guys check out this story if you haven't. And it's on the regular Creepypasta Wiki for any of you guys who want to know. And yeah, I recommend give it a read if you want to check out the story for yourself, because you guys might have your own different opinions on this story. Now, anyways, with that being said, what did you guys think about this creepypasta? Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Also, what you have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Feel free to leave me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. And if you're brand new here to this channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload so that way you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, please roll the outro because I'm out.